Hey guys, welcome back to this week's Pull, or as Josh would always like to say,
what are we reading?
And before we tell you exactly what we're reading into and all the reviews, we wanted to give you a rundown of all the issues we're going to be covering in this episode. So if there's something in particular you want to look for, you can just go ahead and scroll through until you see the cover on the screen that you're looking for. So we're going to be going over Hunt for Wolverine's Dead End number 1. We're going to go Web of Venom, Venam, Venam, number 1. Extermination, number 2. Venom First Host, number 1. XMen Grand Design, Second Genesis Issues 2. Edge of Spider-Geddon, number 2. And the Fantastic Four, number 1 reprint that is a beautiful thing that we will get into. But let's start off with Hunt for Wolverine, Dead End, number 1. It's written by Charles Soule, and the art is done by Ramon Rosanas. So, Josh, what did you think of Hunt for Wolverine?
Well, it's exactly what I thought it was going to be. It is literally just a prelude to the Return of the Wolverine, and it's really not pointless to read before Return of Wolverine, and not needed after the tie-ins?
Well, I think this kind of makes all the Hunt for Wolverine tie-ins obsolete in a way. As somebody who kind of just jumped off of them, I read like the first 2 issues of all of them, and I just kind of stopped. They lost my interest. This caught me up pretty well. At the first few pages, I will admit, I was like, what is going on? What did I miss? But they do a pretty good job of just going, hey, here's where all the pieces are on the chessboard right now. And then at the end, it introduces a new character. And actually, it did get my interest. You know, I was like, okay, this is going to be interesting. The way they're bringing back Wolverine doesn't seem to be so cookie cutter. Seems like there's going to be something new in here, something fresh. Whether or not it's going to be successful, I don't know. But it feels like something I haven't particularly seen before in a way. And this new character that they've introduced, I'm not sure if it's a new character or if it is somebody we just don't know the identity of yet.
Yeah, so you mean it's the same thing like with Requiem on Infinity Wars?
Exactly. Yeah. It could be the old bait and switch Gamora.
Oh yeah, bait and switch Gamora. The only thing that really kind of had me disappointed, and I know that you agree, is the dialogue is kind of stale at times, especially when it comes to characters that we already really enjoy reading, and we've seen writers do dialogue for them very well. And mostly we're talking about out of the 3 main characters, Iron Man and Daredevil. We've seen
2 of my favorite Marvel characters of all time.
Which isn't Soule on Daredevil right now?
Yeah, and he has not impressed me on that series.
Yeah, it's just they're both not very great dialogues, and they try to do these like little weird dad jokes in there, and instead of just like the typical comic book humor, they go for dad jokes, and it's just cringe-worthy. Yeah,
it's not good. And as somebody who's been reading a lot of the X-Men titles lately, I've really come around on Kitty Pryde. Kitty Pryde's quickly become one of my favorite X-Men characters of late, and I think he doesn't do such a good service to her character either.
No.
But I will say that the plan that is hatched in this, the way it tries to get the X-Men and these characters kind of on their toes a bit, I thought that was kind of cool. It went a little bit darker than I expected it to go. It's something that definitely has my interest, and I'm going to be checking out, obviously. I think we're all going to be checking out The Return of Wolverine, and I think this would be a good companion for that, because I'm not sure how much The Return of Wolverine issue itself is going to have the information in this book that might be a necessary read. I just don't know yet.
I don't know if a whole lot in what's in this book is actually really necessary, though. The only thing I find
the last
it to be
4
necessary,
pages, maybe?
The last 4 pages where they introduce this new character, because this was not mentioned in any of the tie-ins.
No.
It's just like, so this just randomly pops up, but they spent 4 pages, just 4 pages, and I mean, that's all, like, really all you gotta do is take those 4 pages, put it in Return of Wolverine, you're fine.
Yeah.
But this way, you're spending an extra
I have an idea of who I think this might be. Should I spoil it, or should I give it out?
Let's do this. Okay, so Jake is going to give us his predictions on who this new character is. Let's go for it.
I have 2, and they're kind of the same character. One of them actually would be Bloodstorm, who was actually just killed off in the first issue of Extermination. In the first issue, not the one we're going over today, but that was the last issue that came out 2 weeks ago. Or it's actually just Aurora. Those are my 2 guesses. They're probably not right, but as the first person that comes to mind.
Those are pretty good speculations.
I don't know how or why it would fit, but just based on the character that I'm looking at here and the small glimpse you get, that is my first kind of logical leap.
I to be honest, I'm so in the dark with it. I do not know. I don't think it's going to be a completely new character, though. I do agree with you on that. I think it's going to be revealing of a character that we have seen in present or past comics.
Right. Okay. And so I will say, is this book worth picking up? Probably, especially if you've been getting all the tie-ins, an absolute must pick up. If you're planning on getting the Return of Wolverine, I think this is going to be a good companion piece. Plus, you got a great Chiquetto cover on the cover A.
Exactly, and you also got a cool Copial variant, Oliver Copial.
Yeah. All right. So, Josh, I will let you do the honors of unveiling this week's rating system.
In honor of the fact that Edge of Spider-Geddon #2 is out this week, today's rating system is going to be Ripped Comics. And I give this one a solid 2.75 Ripped Comics.
I'm absolutely there with you. 2.75 Ripped Comics for me.
The artwork alone is what I would pick that book up for.
Yeah, it's well illustrated. All right, we are going to now move on to Web of Venom Venam. No one has come out and said how to pronounce this. It's Venom in the Vietnam War era. They've got the apostrophe VE''Nam, Venam.
Venam.
Let's
VM goddamn Nam is what's happened here.
Good morning, Venam.
Yeah, Venam.
All right, we're going to church it up. It's Venam.
Yeah,
all right. And this book is written by Donny Cates. If you guys have been reading the actual ongoing Venom series, Sentry, Donny Cates is doing a lot of good stuff over at Marvel right now. And the artist on this is, give me a second to find it. It is Juanan Ramirez.
Ramirez, yeah. And the artwork in this book is, I love Ramirez's artwork.
It is very signature of the writing style for Donny Cates.
Yes, and also for, for Donny Cates, totally, like in Buzzkill and Sentry.
This style is very much up Donny Cates' alley. Like, this is the way he likes his words to be accompanied on the page.
Oh, yeah. And this is, I personally felt like this book was a good book for someone who is reading the Venom storyline. It definitely goes hand in hand, and it does kind of answer a little bit questions. Does it further the story plot for the regular Venom storyline? I don't think so, but there has been a lot of things that pop up, new ideas that's popped up with the symbiote, and this book does answer some of those questions. And it was it was a good little story, and I think that this is a one-shot. That's the way I take it. So it's a cool little book. Jake, what'd you think? As somebody who hasn't caught up on the
right,
Venom.
I think I've only read the first two issues or first issue of the new Venom series by Cates. You bringing up that this is a one shot, I didn't even think about it because, but you know the way they solicit the Web of Venom Carnage Born, it's coming out in November. Yeah. You might be right. But yeah, right. It says the end, but I'm guessing that this book is going to be referenced in the ongoing Venom series, so this is probably a good pickup for that.
You haven't caught up on the Venom storyline.
No.
Where this ends, it's a good spot for it to end.
Okay.
You don't need it, because all the rest of your questions that would come after this has been answered in the last issue from last week of Venom.
Okay, well, speaking as someone who has not read it all the way up, if you're just picking this book up, you wander into your shop, you see something that says Venam on it, something looks kind of Venom symbiote-ish, it's under Marvel, it says Web of Venom. If you're going to go and pick this up, I'd say it's a fun read. I enjoyed it. I didn't feel the need to have read a lot. They give you a good amount of backstory. I always love when you get Nick Fury and Logan together and past... in past adventures and stuff. I love the dynamic between those two characters. Neither of them, Logan doesn't trust Fury, and Fury always uses Logan, but Logan's aware of it. Fury, yeah. And then I do like the idea of these symbiotes. It doesn't feel wholly original only because of the idea of Agent Venom, but at the same time, it feels like this is very much intentional on being a precursor to the Agent Venom storyline. Yeah. Just like the idea of using it and weaponizing the symbiotes for your own gain. I think there's some cool ideas in this book, and Donny Cates has a real knack for writing. I mean, what I love what he can do is that he gives Fury his own voice. He gives Logan a very distinct voice, but it's very distinctly Logan, yet Donny Cates has his own personal thumbprint or flair on it. So I really like this book. I liked it a lot more than I thought it would. I've never been a huge fan of Venom. I've never cared about his ongoing series, but this one was a fun little read, and even better if it's a one-shot. If you don't feel compelled to have to pick up this storyline and continue another ongoing one. This is just something to pick up. And in a week where Marvel and both DC don't have really anything to offer as far as their ongoing series right now, everything is like a new event or issue one or a one-shot like this. This is one of the better ones.
Yeah, it's definitely it's a good one to have, especially if you are reading the Venom storyline, but also if you're just wanting to get a book. Just like, just not the idea of it being Venom, but just the idea of Logan, Nick Fury.
Yeah.
That's what this book is really solely about, is those two. And also kind of has a Predator type feel to it.
It does.
Too.
It's
That's
absolutely
one thing that first
Predator.
came across my head was
and this
Predator
character,
film.
Rex Strickland, very butch, very masculine type name. I dig his character, and I remember in the first issue when you see him, he's got this charred face, answers how that happens, all that good stuff. So, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give this one a solid 3.25 Ripped Comic Books.
I'm giving it a 3.5 Ripped Comic Books. I think that your grade would go up a little bit higher once you do catch up with the Venom
I would most likely have more of an appreciation for the book.
Yeah,
absolutely.
A lot of things that happen in the book are referenced and answered in the ongoing series.
Okay. All right, guys. Now we're going to move on to Extermination, Issue 2, written by Ed Brisson, and art's done by Pepe Larraz, and the art is also, the cover art is done by Mark Brooks, who you guys will recognize on the first issue, or he did all the cover art for Secret Empire as well. I got to say, I am really surprised at how much I'm enjoying this Extermination series. I think all of us kind of felt like it was going to be some gimmick, but what I'm starting to see is it's an answer to the X-Men Blue stuff. X-Men Blue, which we all know has been carrying on the original 5 X-Men who are out of time. That was back all the way back from like 2012, I think.
Yeah, it's been a while. It followed right after the AVX, which I think would be about 2012.
Yeah, so what I'm realizing is they've kind of, sleight of hand used this event to basically answer what is going to happen to the X-Men Blue characters. How and they're using the time travel thing, like it's creating paradoxes now, and it's becoming a problem. And I think that's something that a lot of readers have been having issue with. A lot of people that I talk to, their issues with X-Men Blue was just like they need to go back to their own fucking time.
Well, and even before we read the first issue, that was the first thing I said. I'm just like, I'm getting tired of this, man. When are the consequences going to happen for these kids being in the future for this long?
Right.
And then we read this, and it's like, oh, okay, so here it is.
So, this issue, I really, really enjoyed this one. The art is great. I'm still digging Nightcrawler with the beard. There's some great splash pages, and there's some really good character interactions. It's something that I think the X-Men, more than almost any other book, has to thrive on. Because there are so many characters, because there's so much history between these characters, you have to have great interactions between the people in the panels. And I really, really enjoyed this book. I can't stress enough how much I'm surprised by this book. But I have to caveat that with, I thought this was going to be shit.
Yeah. No, I agree. Granted, I'm a person who started on X-Men and then I went out of X-Men because of how convoluted it is. But one thing I'm glad that you brought up was the character interactions. That was one of my favorite things about this book, next to the artwork, was the character interactions, the interactions with young Jean Grey and Scott, and the interaction with young Hank and old Hank. Mm-hmm.
They're very distinct people, too. They have very distinct personalities, even though they're supposed to be the same person. And even the way original Bobby Drake addresses his younger self, it's just, you get an idea that these are real people who are like, yeah, that's me, but that's also not me.
Yeah. It's but the interactions are great. The artwork's great. I'm liking where the story is going. It's definitely a very intriguing story. This is an event that I hope doesn't fall by the wayside. The only problem I have is with the last page.
Right. Yep. Something I expressed some distaste with.
And I have too. We're not going to spoil it today.
No.
I don't like where that's going to be, but it could easily be corrected with the next issue.
I have to imagine.
I don't think it's going to. It's just, I feel like it's going to be something small and annoying, and it'll go away.
I have to imagine it lasts all of 3 pages in the next issue. But what's interesting is that there's like 2 storylines going on here, and you don't really see in the first issue how they really, help the other one, or why there's a cause and effect between the two. But in this one, I'm starting to get an idea. It doesn't answer it, but I can start to see where these 2 storylines are going to converge. Not exactly sure how, but I can start to see the machinations of it.
Yeah. The one thing I do really enjoy about this event is I like young Cable.
I do too.
I mean, don't get me wrong.
He feels like old Cable, but like in a young
body,
agile body. Yeah,
it's like seeing Clint Eastwood as a toddler.
As a toddler. Yeah. Teen Clint.
But with all that being said, I'm gonna give this book a solid 3 Ripped Comics.
Man, I'm right there with you. I was gonna go 3 Ripped Comics, guys. And if you don't know exactly what the Ripped Comics thing is all about, check out the review we did, Edge of Spider-Geddon #1. You'll understand very well what that rating system's all about. All right, moving on to issue 1 of Venom First Host. It's written by I think it's Mike Costa.
Yeah, Mike Costa,
and
the guy
then
who used to write Venom before Cates.
Right, and then Mark Bagley, who I believe was also doing the art on the last run. And this one is basically, it's an interesting one. I feel like I have to give a little synopsis on this because it takes.
Give a little.
It goes back in time about the symbiote that Eddie Brock specifically ends up wearing and who the first host of this symbiote was. And it's interesting to see that they decided to place it in the time of the Kree-Skrull War, which really is ambiguous in the Marvel Universe timeline because, it happened in the 70s in real time, but as far as the Marvel Universe goes, was that 5 years ago? Was that 10 years ago? How long ago did that happen? So how long has this specific symbiote been around? And so that's basically all I'm going to give you as far as what happens in this book. But I have to say, somebody who wasn't a big fan of the Mike Costa run on Venom, and I fell off of it, this surprised me a little bit too. None of these books, I'll say right after that, none of these books this week for Marvel went above and beyond my expectations and just blew me out of the water, but none of them bored me, and I didn't think any of them were bad. Mm-hmm. So this one, I gotta say, tying it to the Kree-Skrull War is a really interesting thing. And if I go back and I can read the Kree-Skrull War and go, oh my god, they're referencing this very particular panel or this very particular page, even more bonus points to it. What do you think?
For me, especially with the Cates run that I've been reading lately, it's not near as good as the Cates stuff. It's not near as good as the Venam, but it's interesting. The idea of the symbiote first host actually being a Kree soldier, which, by the way, this does have a first appearance in it, so you might want to pick it up because it's probably going to end up being a key book.
The Venom series lately have just been chock full of first appearances.
Venom has been just thank you, Donny Cates, for that because all the collectors are going crazy right now. But it was definitely an interesting story. It wasn't exciting, and it was weird because when I came in the day, I thought, okay, first host, I bet I'm going to like it, and Venam, I think it's going to fall by the wayside. I was wrong. It was the other way around. This was still a good book. I'm just reading this kind of book is the reason why I used to never get an ongoing Venom series. Okay. It was just never really intrigued me enough to be like, okay, yeah, I'll get this on a weekly basis. But with that being said, I still enjoy this one enough to pick it up because I like the idea of it being attached to the Kree. And when you see this Kree soldier with the symbiote,
that's what sold me.
Man, I'm just like, yeah, I'm down for this. Yeah. I'll read it. I'm going to read this.
A Kree soldier in his armor with the symbiote looks totally badass.
Yeah.
They try and get a little political here with it, why they're trying to weaponize the symbiote. And
the other thing is too, Marcon's there, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's the symbiote sweat, but that should have been our rating system.
Symbiote sweat. Oh man.
But
you fucked it, guys. Sorry.
But also the fact that they're actually giving the symbiote itself, not Brock, not the person wearing it, but the symbiote itself, they're trying to give it an agenda. That is either going to fall flat on its face or it's going to really add to the overall mythology. When you retroactively go back and read some earlier Venom stuff, you go, oh, that's really cool. I don't know how it plays out yet, but it's an interesting attempt. So I'm going to go ahead and give this one 2.75 out of 5 ripped comics.
I'm giving it a 2.5.
Okay, so yeah,
comics.
you're
I'm
middling
right
on it.
about there. Yeah, I think I'm just a little bit more right on these like Cates coattail. Like I just have a hard time moving on it.
All right.
So I'm going to go ahead and talk about a book that I read that I did not let Jake read because I didn't want to see any more ripped comic books in inventory.
This is why you chose the grading system.
Yeah, Edge of Spider-Geddon number 2. It is written by Lonnie Nadler and Zach Thompson, and the pencils are done by Alberto Albuquerque. Yeah. The character is actually the story is actually written by Gerard Way. He's the one who created this character. And it follows a character in a different universe named Penny Parker, who is it's supposed to be very Pacific Rim-like. They biologically are connected to these robots, and they fight off huge kaiju-like monsters. And I always thought this character was really interesting. The only thing I hate about it is the fact that it is connected to a Spider-Man universe. It's like supposed to be like this universe's version of Spider-Man, and this is SP-DR. And that's the only thing that bugs me about it. It's because I'm like, this would be a great book if it didn't have the connection of Spider-Man. But other than that, I really enjoyed this one. I enjoyed it more than Kang the
Conglomerator. Yeah.
So I'm going to give this one a 2.75 Ripped Comics.
Okay, and then I'm going to talk about X-Men Grand Design Second Genesis, Issue 2 by Ed Piskor. And guys, I got to say, this is my favorite of the X-Men Grand Design. So far we've got 4 in total of X-Men Grand Design books. This one is my absolute favorite, in part because the very first opening is with Carol Danvers when she becomes Miss Marvel. It follows that, and about how Rogue enters the picture, about how Kitty enters the picture. It even touches back on that issue where Kitty is at the X-Mansion all by herself for that whole entire comic book issue. I think which was like a Christmas thing, and she's Jewish or something, and so she was the only one left at the mansion at the time. But if you're a fan of 90s X-Men, you're a fan of the 90s X-Men cartoon, this is the book for you. This is everything after the Hellfire Club stuff. This is annual king-size issue where Nightcrawler and Storm takes over and Colossus and all these guys join. This book is just so full of X-Men mythology, and it's just so encapturing that when you're reading it, you don't feel. Sometimes when you're reading a comic book, you feel like it's laborious, laborious, I should say.
Yeah.
And this one didn't. I was just sucked in. I couldn't stop reading the book, and it can get a little hard to follow at times because it does. I mean, it's breezing over years and years and years of storytelling.
It's Cliff Notes of the X-Men universe.
It is, but I mean, once you get a beat on it, once you understand the storytelling and how everything is just so almost masterfully crafted at this point, which I believe it was a lot of Chris Claremont, you really get an appreciation for it. And somehow Piskor is still able to bring character out of this. Yeah, you're looking at glimpses and tiny little moments in the X-Men history, but you still get character moments, and he does such a good job. And the art is just, I mean, it's in keeping with the rest, but it was so good in this, and it's printed on that like newspaper.
It's one of my favorite things about these grand designs is because the paper it's supposed to look like newspaper. It's supposed to feel and look like the newspaper paper, and
it
also
has the
aged.
smell.
Yeah, and it's supposed to look aged, so it has that tan color. And so with that being used, whenever he uses whites, they pop.
Yeah.
And I mean, like they're really just. You almost feel like there's like some kind of like actual lighting inside the book because of how much it pops out. It's great. Yeah,
so I gotta say, this is my absolute favorite of the X-Men Grand Design series, and I've been an unapologetic fan of this. So I'm gonna go ahead and give this one 4 ripped comic books because this is a must pick up, and thankfully, guys, we have a huge stack here at the shop. So I don't remember what we were gonna say for the code.
The code?
Do you remember the code?
I don't really remember the code. You know what? I'll just make one up.
Make one up.
Okay, here you go, guys. The code to receive receive 20% off of a book that's not on your pull list is Cotton-Headed Ninny Muggins.
Cotton-Headed Ninny Muggins. All right. And finally, we are going to move on to something that was really a surprise to, I think, the both of us when we got this in. I mean, I know we ordered it, but I didn't think about it. And it's Fantastic Four #1. Yes, it is the original Fantastic Four issue 1 print from Jack Kirby and Stan Lee.
Not Slot's Fantastic Four #1.
No, this is the original, and this thing is beautiful. It's a $3.99 book where all your true believers are all $1 prints, but this thing is worth every damn penny. And honestly, I wouldn't be mad if it was a $4.99 book, but it is printed on such nice cardstock paper. It's got all the original ads from the original book. It's recolored to be vibrant, and basically what it feels like is a time machine. I feel like a kid back in like 1961 who would have picked this up off the rack and just gone, "Oh my God, I am so floored by this book. It's so goofy. It's so much fun to read. There's so much great extra content in the back of the book." This thing was one of my favorite things to read all day.
This was my favorite thing that came in with our shipment today. At first, when we were looking at the orders, and I remember when we looked at this, you mentioned about getting it, and I was like, nobody's going to want to spend $3.99 on a reprint. But we went ahead and took a chance, and we only ordered a few of them.
Right.
And
now I think we got to order more.
Then we looked at them, and then we're like, wow, this is really good quality, and we start looking through it, and it's the stuff that it has inside of it. This is no True Believer reprint.
No.
I mean, you have some bonus material. I mean, it comes down to, you even have a reprint of the back cover of the comic book and all of its ads. And we decided,
and all the ads are in color. It's just, it's beautiful.
It's beautiful. I feel like this would be. I almost feel like this would suffice other than having the
Right,
actual
yeah.
copy.
Like, I wouldn't even be mad if I never got my hands on the original. Well, I mean, there's a
Yeah.
part of me, but I go,
Yeah, there's a
this,
part of me.
this is so cool that I hope that they do this with Amazing Fantasy 15, Amazing Spider-Man #1, Iron Man 1, all this stuff. Like, reprint them like this, and this would be a great... any collector would be so happy to have these in their collection.
Yeah. So, we also realized when we got this that Jake has never read Fantastic Four.
I have never
#1.
read that issue.
I decided that I was going to read it, and I've read half of this before. I don't know what it was, but like I know that I've read half of this before a long time ago, way back. So we decided that we were going to read it, and we're going to review Stan Lee's Fantastic Four #1. Jake, what rating do you want to give the story? Not this book.
Okay, the story.
First one is going to be your rating for Stan Lee's story.
Okay.
And Kirby's artwork. The second rating is going to be for the quality of everything that you're getting for $3.99.
Okay, so the first one, I have to say, I'm grading this on a curve because this is not a modern-day comic book. Yep. I cannot grade it and stack it up against modern-day comic books. I have to go back and look at the stuff, the old classic Silver Age stuff that I've read, and go, how does this stack up? And you know what I got to say, too? One of the first things that struck me is, like it or hate it, the original first Tim Story Fantastic Four movie takes so heavily from this book. There are so many moments from this book that are actually in that movie that I never really realized, that it made me appreciate my guilty pleasure Fantastic Four movie a little bit more. But, you know, I gotta say, in a world where there was nothing but romantic and horror and, you know, sci-fi and like Conan, that kind of stuff going on, this had to have felt so fresh and so new. And even me reading it felt very fresh and very new. There's big concepts, conceptual ideas of living in the nuclear age and the space age and stuff like that. You know, there even Sue Storm goes, we got to do this before the commies do. You know, it just gives you the idea and the atmosphere and the way and where the United States was at that point in time. So for that, the story, I'm going to give it a solid 3 ripped comic books. You know, I mean, it's not the craziest thing ever, but at the same time, it feels like it had to have been very relevant at the time. But for the $3.99 pickup for this is a 5 ripped comic books. I can't stress enough how much I am saddened that we don't have more copies of this in our shop right now.
Yeah. For me, since you nicely asked my opinion,
I knew you were going to do it.
You don't give a shit.
I knew you were waiting on it.
For the storyline, I'm actually going to go a little bit higher. I'm going to go 3.5 ripped comics. And the only reason why...
I want to say this. It's because Sue got no love in this book. She was totally shelved, and that's why those are the 3 comes from.
The one thing I've always was bugged about
very,
was the fact of like,
anti-feminism.
why was she Invisible Girl?
Yeah.
She never, like, it took forever for her
Or
to
why does
become
the girl have to be invisible? Well, because no one cared. She, you know.
We gotta have to put her in here for anyways. But no, the one thing I gotta give it is, in that time period, Marvel Comics was only putting out sci-fi, horror, romantic. It was the only
and they were
thing
done. They were about to
shut
the
it was the only thing that their customers knew them for, and they had to shut the doors. They weren't making the money. But DC was killing it with Action Comics and Detective Comics, and you know, a little bit of their superhero stuff.
Wiz Comics was outselling Superman.
And when you think that when this book came out, Stan Lee pretty much tricked his consumers, his normal consumers, by making this look like it was just a normal sci-fi horror book.
Right.
I mean, they don't have costumes. There's a monster attacking on the front. There's a girl, held in the monster's hand.
A damsel in distress, yeah.
This is the perfect book because you when you're reading it, you feel like you're teetering on this line of sci-fi horror and superhero. Like, you almost feel like you're not reading a superhero comic, and this is where I feel like this is where they get the dynamic for the rest of it. So because of being able, it's Stan Lee perfecting that perfect transition, like you can see where the transition's happening, I got to give it a 3.5. I agree, though. Sue did not get enough love, but
and I will say too, it really surprised me to see how much Ben and Reed are not friends in this book.
No,
they don't get along.
They bump heads. But I like how Johnny's always the same. Yeah, he's like, I can fly. Yeah. But yeah, in the quality of the book, I'm right there with you, 5, because the card stock, I mean, just down to the fact that there's all these ads, the colors, the bonus material. I mean, this is
every recreation of this cover is in the back. You know, you've got Stan Lee's original script in the back.
Yeah.
You have
Stan Lee's original
you've got
script.
a nice long letter from Dan Slott and Stan Lee in there. You know, giving like an appreciation for the book and for the fans. Like it's got so much material in here. I think it is worth every cent of the $3.99.
You know what? I'm going to say right now, we are not allowed to say that this is a reprint. This is not a reprint. This is a special edition.
Yeah, you know what? That is not a reprint. That is a special edition.
It's a special edition Fantastic Four #1.
All right, guys. Well, I hope you didn't mind us getting a little overzealous there at the end, but we were both tickled by that book. Definitely make sure to check out the other episode that's on the channel this week. It's gonna be a lot of independent, and DC really had nothing come out, so they did a lot of their Looney Tunes DC stuff, and we'll be covering that for you. But if you've already checked that out, then we will see you guys next week, and we thank you so much for listening. Take care.
Ciao, Roberto.